it is Dr. Mitchell again, looking some more at Boolean expressions in this video. This time looking at logical operators so that we can combine multiple conditions to produce a single Boolean value. So what are we learning? We are going to be writing expressions using these logical operators. These logical operators include not, and or. And we can use these in combination with different Boolean expressions to produce a single Boolean value. So let's look at some examples. Let's say I want to use the not operator in a whole process to check whether or not it's raining outside. So let's say I have my is raining variable and I set it to false. And I want to store the result of not is raining in that variable. So in this case, having false stored inside of this is raining variable when you're in Florida, probably not going to work. So that not operator actually ends up reversing or making it the opposite of what that initial value was. So even though is raining currently has the value false, I can have
result just have the value of not is raining or true. So I don't end up changing the is raining variable itself. I just actually use that in another, with that logical operator to flip it and store it inside of my result operator. The AND operator is used to evaluate two conditions together and determine whether or not both of those conditions are true. If they are both true, then the entire expression will be true. So for example, if grade currently stores the value 85, then what I'm going to store in result is the result of this expression, which I'm checking first if grade is greater than 70. So since it's 85, 85 is greater than 70. So that part of that condition is true. So now I have to check the second part of the condition and make sure that it is true also. The second part of the condition says grade is less than or equal to 100. 85 is less than or equal to, or it's less than 100. So that part is true. So since I have a true and true, then the result winds up getting the value true. Now, if I look at the same example, but with the value 43. So if I look at that Boolean expression using that logical operator and 43 is not greater than 70. So that part will be false. Even though 43 is less than 100, since I'm using the AND operator, both of those conditions have to be true in order for the whole condition or the whole expression to be true. So since that's not the case, grade is not greater than 70, that is false. The whole result the result variable winds up getting
the value false. Now the OR operator is a little different. In this case, I'm only looking for one of those conditions to be true. So in the first example where I have score has the value 175, high score has the value 150, and then lives has the value 2. Result is going to get the expression or the value that results from this expression. So if I have score is greater than 175, so score is 175, high score is 150, so that is true. I don't actually, because I have a true, I don't actually have to check the other one. But if I did, I see that I'm checking for if lives equals 0. Lives does not equal 0 right now because lives contains the value 2, but at least one of these conditions was true, the score greater than high score. So I will wind up getting true out of the entire expression. If I look at the second example has score holding the value 100, high score still has 150, and then lives has the value 1. In this case, score is not greater than high score because 100 is not greater than 150. So that part is false. And then when I look at the second half of the expression, the lives equals 0, that part is false because lives currently is 1. So as a result, since neither one of those conditions in this expression are true, the whole thing winds up being false. So let's get some practice doing this on our own. So let's say we're trying to write a Boolean expression to represent this scenario. Pause the video and write a Boolean expression, either in text-based or block-based, to determine whether or not you can go out. You can go out if you did your homework and you scored at least an 80 on your computer science exam. So I could write this Boolean expression as did homework and score greater than or equal to 80. The did homework will be a Boolean variable that contains either true or false. So that part will get evaluated on its own. And then the score greater than or equal to 80 will get evaluated. And then I use the AND operator to connect the two to determine if they are both true in order to output whether or not I can go out. Okay, let's look at another example. Pause the video to write a Boolean expression to determine if you can leave your umbrella at home. You can leave your umbrella at home if it is not cloudy and the temperature is greater than 75. So I could write this Boolean expression like this. So let's say I have an is cloudy. I would create an is cloudy Boolean variable that's going to contain true or false. And I'm going to check that it's not is cloudy. And then on the other side of that expression, I'm going to check whether or not the temperature is greater than 75. So that would make my whole Boolean expression, and I would be able to determine if both of those are true. Okay, you win the game if you have at least 20 points and 3 lives left, or if you have 100 points and more than 0 lives left. Pause the video to write a Boolean expression for this scenario. Okay, so if I have a variable called score and a variable called lives to represent those two components of my problem, then I could check that score is greater than or equal to 20 and that lives equals 3 for that first part of my situation that I would win if I have at least 20 points and 3 lives left. Or the other part of the situation is if I have 100 points and more than 0 lives left. So then the other expression that I would evaluate is whether or not my score equaled 100 and I had more than 0 lives or lives greater than 0. Now I can do an or in between those two expressions to check whether or not either of those wound up being true. So this winds up being a pretty complex Boolean expression. However, it allows me to evaluate for either of these two scenarios that could occur. So just to recap, we can use logical operators to write Boolean expressions to evaluate multiple conditions using either and or not. The not operator allows us to basically flip what's currently stored in that variable without impacting that variable or condition itself. The AND operator we can use to check both conditions to produce one single Boolean true or false. And the OR operator we can use to check whether or not one of those conditions is at least true or false. Thanks. See you in the next video where we look some more at using these Boolean expressions.